Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Calls. This is the 2025 Valspar Championship DFS Tactics show. This will probably be a bit of a shorter show as there are some thunderstorms in my area and the internet has been very intermittent. I want to get to as much information as possible, so let's get right into it. All statistics tonight and every night are provided by FantasyNational.com. It is the best golf analytics tool out there for your money. Go check out FantasyNational.com. You will not regret it. In the description, there are all of the links to the social media, mine, Gabe's. So make sure you are following us both, especially Gabe's, as that is where our write-ups are posted every week for our picks, like our detailed descriptions that came out about an hour and a half ago over on his social media page. So make sure you're following him over there. Speaking of Gabe, make sure you are subscribed to his article as well. Really is a great way to start your week of preparation. And we have started incorporating his projected ownerships into the mixed condition model. So really are missing out. Make sure you are subscribed to the article that he writes and follow him over on social media. And then lastly, for this very shortened intro, feel free to jump in chat. Would love to hear your thoughts on the Valspar. You can see the fandom is still in full effect, will be throughout March Madness so long as my team is still in it. I admit to type up a poll question. I will do that here momentarily, but we are here for the Valspar. Feel free to jump into chat, and if you aren't able to catch the show live, put your opinions and thoughts into the comments. I'll always get to those as well. So let's get into it. Let's figure out our strategies and our tactics for the 2025 Valspar Championship. And we are going to start, as we always do on a Wednesday evening, over at the Super Forecast over at Windfinder. Let me type up this poll question here very, very quickly. Between the Valspar and March Madness, which are you paying attention to more? So apologies, I meant to have that typed up. Finalizing that. And I will post that. Would love to hear the community's response to that. It is March Madness, so a lot of kind of an unofficial holiday in America with that. So feel free to put your thoughts into that. The forecast for the Palm Harbor area. There's been a lot of talk all week regarding this big wave advantage that the Thursday AM and the Friday PM portion of the draw is going to enjoy. And let me make this very, very clear from the beginning. I do not disagree. I believe that mostly it's the Friday PM, but it's the same draw. The Thursday AM, Friday PM portion has the favorable half of the draw. So let's make that very, very clear. With that said, I'm not scared. I've got a few players in the Thursday PM, Friday AM portion of the draw that I'm going to play. A couple of them very, very heavily because there is some rain in the forecast, and you never know. With rain, they could have delays. And if they have delays, then that just continues to push back tee times and messes with all of that. Again, I don't deny that the Thursday AM portion has an advantage, and if I'm in between two players, I'm certainly going to want to favor the player that's in the Thursday AM / Friday PM half of the draw. But I'm not scared, and I don't think you should be either, because when we go and check these projected ownerships, you're going to see a big discrepancy. So you're not going to be unique if you are 5 of 6 or 6 of 6 stacking the AM PM wave. Just letting you know. Hey, good evening, Derek. Good evening, P. Thanks for jumping in chat. As you all can see, the fandom is in and in full view. It's going to be a bit of a shorter show. I have thunderstorms in the area. The internet's been intermittent, so I'm going to try to get through as much as possible. Going all in on Fleetwood again in the AM PM thing. Things change, and you get to say I was wrong. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what team I'm cheering for. P, it's a big mystery. Big mystery. But it's good to see you both this evening. Hope you've had a good week. Got your brackets ready, and you are ready for the Valspar. So, as I was mentioning, there's the forecast. Big advantage for the Thursday AM, Friday PM. But I'm gonna tell you right now, I'm gonna try to beat that. I really am. I'm gonna try to beat it. We'll keep that up just in case there are questions. We're gonna move to Fantasy National. Of course, was I was actually building some lineups not too long ago. So let me unstar these players. Normally we like to do a bit of a review. We're not going to have a chance to do that. Again, trying to get through as much as possible this evening. So let's just jump straight in to the mixed condition model that I have made for the Valspar this week. It has to go quick. No, you feel free to ask questions. Like every week, I will get to as many as possible. But I at least tonight, Monday night, I did not know or understand why my show was cutting out, and the internet was in and out. Tonight, I understand why, because there are thunderstorms in the area, and the internet's already been in and out a little bit today. So feel free to ask any questions. I just apologize if I don't get to them all. All right, the mixed condition model for the Valspar this week. We're going to start with 15% off the tee. I really thought about dropping this down to 10%. Having said that, this is my bias as a statistician, at least with golf, that I much prefer to favor the iron players and good ball strikers. So that's where that extra 5% is coming in, is in my bias. I make no qualms about admitting that. And iron play is still very, very important here at the Valspar. These greens are very, very tough to hit. And if you're not, at least hitting a modicum of greens, you're going to be really struggling. So 15% in approach, and keeping with this idea of precision, not necessarily accuracy, but precision. Hey, good evening, Phil. Thanks for jumping in chat. Very much appreciated. I'll let P and Derek fill you in on why the show might feel a little bit rushed. Long story short, there's thunderstorms in the area, so I want to try to get through as much as possible. Played golf yesterday on the course. Grew up on. There were down trees and shingles all over the course. Wicked storms the other day. I actually played earlier today before the bad weather came in. It was quite windy, which did no favors for my golf game at all. So it was pretty rough out there, at least for me. But glad you got out to play a little bit, P. So as I was talking about with this precision, not necessarily accuracy off the tee, because I've talked about all week how most players at the Valspar play to the same spots, meaning, just hitting the fairway really isn't all that much. It's more about precision, being very exact with your driver or your off the tee, because the driver's not really used, and with your iron. So sticking to that, 15% in good drives gained. Good drives meaning the players hit the fairway, or they're still able to hit the green from the rough or the fairway bunker or whatever. 15% in good drives gained. So you can see just the emphasis in precision this week. And I really wanted to emphasize that. And using that difficult relative to par filter. Did I break 80? No, I did not. I have before, not today. I did not make enough putts to break 80. Not today. 10% around the green. Look, these greens are very, very difficult. Nice wind round. I hate. My golf game does not do well in the wind. So you can call me a Tom Hoagie in that regard. 10% around the green. Players are going to miss a lot of greens this week. This place is just tough. It really is. It's just tough. So there is going to be a decent amount of scrambling, a decent amount of short game needed around here. So 10% around the green. This might be a bit interesting, but the more I researched, particularly yesterday, the more that I found that not only were players fairly inconsistent with Poa Trivialis putting, so I wanted to factor in some Poa Trivialis, considering the players last week at Sawgrass on Poa Trivialis. We've had Poa Trivialis at the Stadium course, the Amex, Waste Management. We've seen it a couple times. I didn't want to discount that, but really a lot of the champions, particularly, were just putting well. You think about these champions, Peter Malnati. I see the camera starting to go out, so we're just going to shut that off real quick. And I'll shut off the Excel version as well. Peter Malnati, despite him being a 300 or whatever he was to one long shot last year, he was putting well. Sam Burns, always a good putter. These guys have generally putt well to start the year. Not necessarily just on Poa Trivialis, but in general, just putt well. So 5% in putting for 2025, 5% putting on Poa Trivialis. Got an outright on Kitayama. I understand he's in the good wave. I'm just not the biggest believer in Kitayama. Having said that, he did win Bay Hill a couple years ago, or maybe now 3 years ago. And Bay Hill, emphasizes long irons, short game. So I can understand it. I'm just not a big Kitayama guy. Anyone watching the tournament notice any players standing out, practice well or poorly? I can't say that I did, Derek. Any time not spent on the Valspar was spent researching March Madness. I feel, other than today where I got out and played a little bit myself, I've been in front of the computer. 40% Xander in lineups. Never got to watch their practice. So there's the reasoning behind the putting. Talked about the 15% good drives. 5% birdies gained. Now, yes, we're mostly focused on the bogey avoidance, but 5% birdies gained. Like, despite the fact that 12 under, 10 under is generally a winning score here, players are going to get some bogeys. Very, very rarely are you going to have a clean card around the Copperhead course. So players are going to have to get upwards of 15 to 20 birdies throughout the week to have a chance to contend. So I did not want to overlook that. 5% birdies gained when rounds are difficult. 10% bogey avoidance when rounds are difficult. Hopefully that is self-explanatory. If pars are good scores, then you want to see who can avoid the bogeys. 5% each. 175 to 200 proximity and 200 plus proximity. Innisbrook has a lot of forced layups, a lot of dog legs, things of that nature. Plays a lot like a Pete Dye design in that regard. Pete Dye, you can hit some drivers, but not a whole lot of drivers around Innisbrook. So really emphasizes the long irons. Did not want to ignore those, 5% in each of those. We finished the mixed condition model 10% in par 3s. Remember, there are five par 3s around the Innisbrook Resort, or at least the Copperhead course. 10% in 400 to 450 par 4s, 5% 550 to 600 par 5s. There's a look at the mixed condition model. Hopefully I went through it clearly enough, and hopefully some things are somewhat obvious. If where I might be weak, I don't have any off the tee. Generally off the tee is mitigated here. If distance matters, which generally it doesn't, things of that nature. All right, so let's go to Microsoft Excel, the reveal of my rankings, and you'll see an added column this week thanks to this massive AM/PM wave advantage. So my rankings are based on 3 criteria: the FNGC rank, straight numerical ranking based on the mixed condition model we just went over. Course value is a way to give a player a numerical value based on how well they have played that course. Normally it's the past 5 years. For the Valspar, It's the past 4 because 2020 was canceled for 2020 reasons. And then projected ownerships, we are playing DFS. We're trying to find unique options off of our fellow contestants. Projected ownerships are a factor into my rankings as well. These are projected ownerships straight from Gabe. Again, you are really missing out if you are not subscribed to his article, as you would be able to get these much earlier on a Wednesday and really mess around, toy with your lineups where the ownerships are. Okay, my rankings are based on those criteria. Notice I don't inherently put any wave advantage into my rankings. I just don't. So that's why I have this column. My rankings for the Valspar go as Shane Lowry, my number 1 player, kind of. Sam Ryder, who I am very, very high on. Second, Lucas Glover, Ben Griffin, and Tommy Fleetwood round out my top 5. Michael Kim, Xander, Seabass, Corey Connors, and Nikolai Højgaard round out my top 10. So the very overwhelming thing that hits you in the face, 4 bad wave players are my top 4. Just understand they are getting helped tremendously by the fact that they are so unique, at least compared to their counterparts in and around that price. For example, Tommy, projected 30% ownership. I would have to guess he's going to be closer to 35. Would be my guess. Sepp Straka here at 25%. I would guess he's going to be closer to 30. Like, this AM PM wave is not a secret. It's all out throughout golf gambling Twitter and podcasts and all that stuff. So it's not a secret. So with that, that's why these players who are especially extremely unique, like a Sam Ryder, like a Ben Griffin, are really, really rising in my rankings because they are so unique. Tommy Fleetwood has played extremely well here. Shane Lowry's been good here. Sam Ryder's. So if they've had a little bit of decent course history, that's helping them as well. Again, as I mentioned in the forecast portion of the show, if I am close or tied between a player, I will favor the AM, or the good half of the draw guy. But I'm not scared to go to somebody that I really like a Connors, like a Ryder, like a Lucas Glover. I'm a little bit more concerned with Shane Lowry, just because he's played so much golf lately. But he is number 1 in my rankings. Just understand these guys that are in the good wave are not going to be unique. They just aren't. So there's a look at my rankings. Enough rambling with that because I want to make sure I have time to make some lineups and go through the picks. We're going to sort on the price board, figure out where our fellow contestants seem to be going, and how we're going to maneuver around all of that chalk. Are you doing stacks this week? Or are you mixing AM and PM? Mostly, I'm mixing. Mostly. I will do a lineup or 2 that is all AM, like Thursday AM, Friday PM. And I'm going to probably do 1 or 2 lineups that is all Thursday PM, Friday AM. Again, this is not a be-all. Like, this forecast isn't 100% set in stone. The weather changes. We all know that. And especially with rain in the forecast, at least a little bit of rain early in the morning, if you have any kind of delays, that's going to throw everything off. And then all of a sudden, the weather or the bad winds, especially Friday morning, are done, and the Thursday PM, Friday AM actually gets the better half of the draw. So I think it's too much of a risk to put all of your eggs into this narrative, especially since our fellow contestants are doing the same thing. In the 5 digits, in the 10Ks, we have 4 players: Justin Thomas, Xander, Tommy Fleetwood, and Sepp Straka. I've seen you all talk a little bit about these guys. I'll just say it, Phil. I'm not on Xander. Xander's a complete fade for me, but I understand it. I wanted to use Xander. I really did. He's had some decent success here at the Copperhead course. I was pretty turned off by his performance at the Players last week, and it's not just like his T72. I get that. He did not ball strike it well. The reason why I was willing to take a gamble on Xander at the Players is because he actually ball struck it fairly well at the API. He just was terrible around the green. Now you look at the Players, he was awful off the tee. He was awful with the putter. Like, he's just rusty. He is. And that's to be expected coming off of the injury. So, as much as I wanted to like Xander, I can't do it this week. I just can't. I understand he's in the good wave, all of that, but he's just rusty. Until he shows a modicum of life or the game is somewhat consistent, just can't get there. And as much as I'm not afraid to use players in the Thursday PM, Friday AM portion of the wave, I'm not using Justin Thomas. So I am full fading. I mean, I'm talking literal full fade, both of these players. Justin Thomas, other than his Friday 62 at Sawgrass last week, he was horrendous. Now, yes, he had one very, very immaculate round, tied the course record. But for 3 other rounds, he was horrible. And Valspar is not a place where you can afford to get wayward off the tee. And Justin Thomas can get wayward off the tee. His irons haven't been the sharpest either. We all know that he can struggle with the putter. I'm just out. I'm out on JT. If I'm gonna spend a lot of my salary on a bad wave player, I'm gonna make sure I get a guy who is consistent. That gives you a little foreshadowing who I'm using. I'm just out on JT. Again, Phil, you might beat me this week. I accept that. I wanted to like Xander, but then the stats came in for the players, and I mean he just wasn't good. Which leads me to Tommy and Sepp. And don't get me wrong, I'm going to play these guys, but it's going to be very, very difficult, or you're going to have to work really, really hard to get some uniqueness going with these two players. Even if you were to use both of them in your lineup, their pricing is not prohibitive enough to make that a unique construction. I'll just show you just very quickly. You put Tommy and Sepp, you're still able to average a low to mid 7 to fill out the rest of this team. Their pricing is not prohibitive. I would not be surprised to see a lot of lineups. I don't want to put a percentage on it, but a lot of lineups start Tommy and Sepp because they are on the good half of the draw. Tommy, just very popular player in general. He's been very good here, and Sepp with all of the recent form. So, again, there's nothing inherently wrong with Tommy. There's nothing inherently wrong with Sepp. There's nothing inherently wrong with using both of them. Just understand you're going to have to find a lot of uniqueness somewhere by doing that. So in the 10Ks, these are the two players I'm using. I can't say that I won't put Tommy and Sepp together in a couple lineups, but generally speaking, I'm going to play. It's tough. Honestly, I'm probably going to have about the same amount of use of Tommy and Sepp. As much as I want to go to Sepp because he's a little bit more unique, I'm with you, Derek. Like, Tommy just makes perfect sense for this course. Having said that, if you want to fade Tommy, I would not bat an eye at it. It's a very, very good game theory play to full fade Tommy. Because at this price, in this field, you are banking on Tommy getting a top 5. He's definitely a top 5 talent in this field. But if he doesn't top 5, he basically doesn't accrue the points that mandates that pricing. So if somebody wanted to full fade him, I could understand it. I just don't think I can this week, given that he's on the good half of the draw. I don't think I am brave enough to fade Tommy. So that's a look at the 10s. I'm using both of these guys. Yes, they're chalky, but don't get me wrong, I am full fading both of these. Moving to the 9s. Despite being a 2-time champion, despite him being much more unique than the other 2 players above him, I want no part of Sam Burns. His irons have been horrendous. He's actually not performed on par 4s of this length. So his 175 and his 200 plus have been really bad. I just don't want any part of Sam Burns until he shows something with the irons. I mean something. He hasn't shown anything with the irons. I put this in the write-up. He has lost strokes with the irons in 6 of the 7 events he has played this year, including losing 10 at the API, losing 4.5 at the Players last week. I understand, again, he's a 2-time champion. I get it. No thanks. I'm much more confident in Tommy and in Sepp above him. Puerto Rico was winning. You play Tommy, but get different with the players. Yeah, absolutely, you can, Derek. But it's much easier to really climb in these big GPPs by not playing the most popular player. That's all I'm getting at. You can certainly do it, but it's much harder. It's much harder to differentiate yourself. If it wasn't obvious from when I was talking about the 10Ks, I really like Corey Connors this week. I'll be using plenty of Corey Connors. I understand he's probably the most chalky option of the bad wave players. I'm just confident in his ability to keep the ball in front of him. He's a very well-known commodity. When majors roll around, majors are always very difficult, where fairways are generally a premium. So I like Corey this week. Despite Shane being the number 1 in my rankings, I do have some concerns about Shane. He has played a lot of golf lately. It can take a toll. So I just have some concerns with Shane. The metrics love him for obvious reasons. He is going to be, somewhat owned as well, which helps. And really, nothing else stands out to me in the 9Ks. You can maybe take a flyer on Will Zalatoris, considering the irons are starting to look, kind of Will Zalatoris-esque before the back injury, but he's also on the bad half of the draw, so that hurts him for sure. Really, nothing else in the 9Ks appeals to me all that much. I know people have talked about Alex Smalley. He's putt a lot better in 2025. I'm not a believer. Just not a believer. So in the 9s, no thanks on Sam Burns. That might be one of the bigger or bolder, suggestions I have this week. I'm going to play a lot of Connors. I will have Lowry. I'm going to try to limit my use of him. Might sprinkle Will Zalatoris in a lineup or 2, and I'm out on these guys. So moving into the 8s. As much as I don't want to like Michael Kim, my goodness, the analytics are so good. The stats are so good on him. Second in around the green in this field. Good with the short par 4s. Irons, no explanation needed. This is a gut feeling a lot like Shane, that I don't think Michael Kim will live up to expectations, considering he's coming off a miscut from the Players. He too has played a lot of golf recently, and he's in the good half of the draw, so he has everything going for him. This is a gut feeling on my end. So you might wholeheartedly disagree. You might be all in on Michael Kim. I'm just not. It's just, I can't explain it. It's just gut feeling. Johnny Vegas has the good half of the draw. He's in the low sevens, but you see he didn't rate out well, which we'll get to. Another player that I'm probably going to regret this because a chalky Lucas Glover never works out, but I'm probably going to play quite a bit of Lucas Glover. I'm just a big believer in the fact that his irons, his ball striking, which is always good, is really good right now, and he's also putting pretty well. Unlike Smalley, like Lucas Glover will hit fairways, will hit greens on a consistent basis, especially when it's difficult. Alex Smalley's been really bad on par threes. Lucas Glover's been excellent on par threes. I'm just a big believer in Lucas Glover. I'll mention JT Poston. He kind of popped a little bit, but he's on the bad half of the draw. I see the lightning and thunder rolling in, so I'm going to try to speed this up just a little bit. So in the 8Ks, I'll probably use a lot of Michael Kim. I don't want to. I have a gut feeling he'll disappoint, but because he's so high in my rankings, he'll probably get generated a bunch in my lineups. I am going to use quite a bit of Lucas Glover. Beware on a chalky Lucas Glover. A lot of times it doesn't work out. And Jake Knapp here at 81. I do want to mention Jake Knapp. Despite the fact that he's got the bad half of the draw, irons have been good. He is 10th in putting so far this year. 10th in just total putting. Putts Poa Trivialis well. I know he's got the bad half of the draw. Take a look at Jake Knapp. Moving into the sevens, look at Stefan Jaeger. Good half of the draw. I'm going to go back to the well with Seabez. I know he burned me last week, but I'll go back to the well with Seabez. Don't understand why Rasmus is more expensive than Nikolai. Maybe the ownership can be a pivot, but still. I don't know. Rasmus is higher in the OWGR. Has generally played better recently than Nikolai. Nikolai made his big breakout last year, and then Rasmus was making his breakout late in 2024. So it's just like, at least worldwide form, Rasmus has been a little better more recently. That's all I can think of there, Derek. You mentioned Kurt Kitayama. I think it was Phil had the outright on Kitayama. Like, he was pretty middling for me. I wouldn't get too worried about this course value. He only played here once. It was really bad. My issue with Kitayama is generally you would think of Kitayama as a decent putter. He hasn't putt well yet in 2025. Par threes haven't been good. He hasn't avoided bogeys when it's difficult. Like, I don't know. There's just too many red flags for me for Kitayama. But he does have the good out of the draw. Hey, good evening, Rose. Thanks for jumping in chat. Much appreciated. Apologies that the show was going to feel a little bit rushed. There's a thunderstorm in the area. I've had trouble with my internet already this evening. I want to get through as much of this as possible before hopefully I don't lose power, but I very well could. Moving into the mid to low sevens. Again, I mentioned Seabez. I'll go back to the well. Jacob Bridgman's gotten some talk this week. I can understand it. Decent putter. Decent with the irons. I don't hate it. I'm all in on Joe Highsmith. Joe Highsmith is one of my top plays this week. Wins the Cognizant to start the Florida swing. Has never played here. A little worried about the around the green, but I really, really like Joe Highsmith. I would imagine he's going to be a little bit more popular than this. Moving into the low sevens. Again, I'm in on Sam Ryder. I didn't get a lot right with the players. I know that. The one thing I did get right was Sam Ryder. So I'm going to go back to the well there. I know he's on the bad half of the draw. Don't care. Number one putter in this field. Number one putter on Poetry Realis. The long irons are good. Or good enough. Irons have been good. I'm going to use a lot of Sam Ryder. 6K plays. A couple players I want to mention to you. I'm going to use Adam Schenk. Again, good putter on the surface. Has played very, very well here. Runner-up to Taylor Moore a couple years ago. And don't overlook Danny Walker. I know he was the last man in the field when he only got in because of J-Day's withdrawal, but he has been playing pretty well lately. The irons have been good. He's been very good around the green. Keeps the ball in front of him. I do like Danny Walker, particularly because he has the good half of the draw. Okay, Thunderstorm is literally seemingly right on top of me. If you want to know about tiers contests, feel free to hit me up on social media. I'm going to try to squeeze some of this show because it's here. All right, most popular lineup that I can think of. They might not do Tommy Sepp, but that would be my guess. In the low sevens, players are just kind of everywhere. You see, the next lowest double digit is JT Poston at 87. So it's been kind of hit and miss for everybody down here. I do think Joe Highsmith will be somewhat popular. Let's see. We have Rico Hoey's been getting a lot of attention. I'm not there. Good half of the draw. Davis Riley, perhaps, at 6,800. There's Rico. We come up to maybe a Nikolai Højgaard's probably going to get some steam. I would not be surprised if Joe Highsmith got some steam as well. In the mid to mid sevens, Bridgman makes some sense. And then 8,000 is Cameron Young. Most of our fellow contestants probably aren't there. Jaeger might get some love just because he's good half of the draw. Like, this is a 6-man all AM, PM, like Thursday AM, Friday PM wave. I know this part looks unique. I don't think this is going to be a unique lineup, particularly because you have these top two here. Let's see. If they didn't go Tommy Sepp, they'd probably go like Tom Kim and work their way down, or Michael Kim even. Work their way down. Lucas Glover's still getting some attention. And then fill it out how you see fit in the bottom of the seven. Still Rico, Jacob Bridgman, and then, whatever your choice is between Højgaard and Joe Highsmith. We'll say Nikolai again. So that's probably going to be your most common lineups this week. Tommy and or Sepp. And then Rico down here getting a lot of love. Bridgman, Højgaard, or Highsmith. Things of that nature. How are we going to combat that? All right. Just pick my guys. No worried about the whether A and B is what it is. I'm generally with you, Rose. If I'm close between two players, I'll take the AM PM guy, the good half of the draw guy. But my pick to win this week actually comes from the bad half of the draw. All right. So how are we going to combat these unique lineups? If you're going to build make Tommy lineups, I don't hate it. Makes a whole lot of sense. But my guess is you're going to have to find a second player like a Shane Lowry, like a JT Poston maybe. Corey Connors might work, but it's going to be probably still fairly chalky. And don't be afraid to drop down into the 6,900 area. Again, Danny Walker. I didn't mention Andrew Putnam, but Andrew Putnam could be interesting. I would go with Adam Schenk. I like Adam Schenk this week. That's how you could get quite a bit of uniqueness off of the chalk in the low sevens. Some other notable names here. Again, I don't think Sam Ryder is going to be very popular. I'm all in on Sam Ryder again. I am not a big believer in Keith Mitchell this week. Yes, he's got the good half of the draw. But the iron, like Keith Mitchell's known for his ball striking. He's just not a good putter. Like the irons, even in a slightly weaker field, I mean, this is still a fairly strong field, but even in a weaker field, he has still been pretty poor in terms of irons. He hasn't hit a lot of greens or fairways when it's been difficult. I'm just not there with Keith Mitchell. Just not. Not until he shows some signs of life. How else we're going to get some uniqueness in here? I don't think he's going to be terribly unique. I'm hoping Highsmith is more unique than Højgaard. I like Jaeger, but you're going to have to throw in a bad wave guy or two. Corey Connors. Again, I would go Lucas Glover. Maybe you go Luke Clanton. I'm not the highest on Luke Clanton, but that could work. Jake Knapp. Jake Knapp fits perfectly into this lineup. Really like Jake Knapp. And then, again, to Rosé's point, 78, if you are high on Keith Mitchell, that he fits perfectly right here in this price. I would go with Seabez, despite the fact that he burned me last week. I'm still going back to that well. I know the ownership is still a little bit high with Tommy and Corey, but you have some uniqueness here with Shank, with Jake Knapp. I don't know how many people are on Seabez. He might be a little bit more chalky than I'm thinking. But if you want to get real unique, the real unique way to go this week is balanced. You go Corey Connors, and you bottom out at Sam Ryder at 71. Another player that I'm pretty high on, Max McGreevy. He's got the bad half of the draw, but I really like Max McGreevy. Like, you could go something to the effect of like Sam Ryder, Max McGreevy, Joe Highsmith. Like, if you wanted to get real greedy with this balanced lineup, it's essentially the 3-9-3-7s. I'm just higher on Highsmith, but you go Connors, you go Lowry. If you're big on Will Zalatoris, this could be a Will Zalatoris. Michael Kim. I would use Lucas Glover in this, and you're leaving quite a bit of money on the table, which is also going to help your uniqueness, your differentiation. The more money you're willing to leave on the table, the more you're going to be unique against our fellow contestants. So if you're willing to have the cojones to fade Tommy and Sepp, that's where you're going to get very unique this week. Do you think Tommy and dropping down to the 7s will be unique, like skipping the 10, like the rest of the 10s, 9s, and 8s? It might be. If we go, you go Tommy and then just load up with like the upper 7s, like Stefan Jaeger, Ben Griffin could be interesting as well. I know he's got the bad half of the draw, but Jaeger, Bezuidenhout. I don't hate this, but for me, I would still much rather try and get like a second. I don't want to call him a stud, but a second premium player in this field. Define that how you wish. Corey Connors, Lowry. I don't consider Michael Kim a premium player in this field just because I have some concerns with him, but maybe Michael Kim. Yeah, that's what I would do with that. Two guys in the low 6s. I'd be interested to hear that, Rosé, because I'm not going anywhere lower than 6,900. But I am using, three of these guys like Shank, Putnam, Danny Walker. I'm mainly on these two. I will throw Andrew Putnam into a lineup because he rated out so well. But I'm higher on Walker and Shank. Okay, I know this is rushed. I apologize. We're gonna go into the pick selection for this week. The Valspar selections between Gabe and I. And again, if you want to see our detailed write-ups, go check out his social media page. Of course, his handle is right there. My winner, I'm going to take Corey Connors. Not scared. I'm not scared of this supposed prohibiting bad draw that he has. Corey Connors is well tested in difficult situations. He's good in the wind. Keeps the ball in front of him, so I'm not worried about him ejecting. And then once he gets to the weekend, it's supposed to be beautiful weather. Very calm, maybe a little chilly. I like Corey Connors a lot this week. I'm going to take Corey Connors. Gabe's going to go with Tommy. He's going to think that Tommy is going to break the winless streak on American soil. Makes a lot of sense, but I'm just not. I won't pick Tommy to win. I just won't. I think he'll play well. I just won't pick him to win. Favorite play, I'm going to go with Joe Highsmith. Gabe's going to go with Rico Hoey. I'm going to fade Sam Burns. You know, that's the chalk that I chose to take. Maybe you think Xander's more of the more chalk that I should have put there. I just listed Sam Burns because he's a two-time champion, but I'm off of Xander and Sam Burns. Gabe's going to go with Lucas Glover for the reasons that I mentioned, that chalky Lucas Glover generally just doesn't work out. He's also not the best in the wind. I'm going to choose to believe in the ball striking. Gabe's going to fade it. So we're a little bit at odds there. Mad Scientist play. I've got Adam Schenk at 6,900 and what, 4% ownership? Maybe even less. 3.5. So I like that. Gabe's going to go a little bit off the beaten path here. He's going to take a low 8 Ben on as his Mad Scientist play. You'll have to read his write-up on his reasoning why. He made a compelling argument. I'm not there. Didn't quite convince me, but I could understand his logic after he explained it. Thoughts on Fishburne? You'd have to tell me the price, that way I can look very quickly, because I don't see him off the top of my head, or scrolling here. Paul Peterson is interesting. I kind of looked at Paul Peterson a little bit. The only bad thing is there, Rose, he does have the bad half of the draw, which I know you're saying you're playing your guys regardless. But Paul Peterson has not played well beyond the Sony when he kind of made his big entrance. So do have some concerns there, but very good around the green player, very good putter. So I do like that shout in that regard. 67 on Fishburne. Good half of the draw. Honestly, he was one of my lowest rated players. Does not play difficult courses. In his very small sample size of difficult in relation to par, it's not been good. I can understand the thought process because he is a good putter at a course that emphasizes putting. I can see it. I'm just not there. His long irons have been atrocious. I mean, literal atrocious so far in 2025 as well. So that's a big knock on him. Like, it doesn't matter how good of a putter you are if you're putting for bogey every single time, is kind of the reasoning behind that. Our fear of missing out, I'm going to take Danny Walker. Kind of a coin flip here between Adam Schenk and Danny Walker for Mad Scientist / FOMO. Danny Walker, very big Players Championship. On the good half of the draw, I'm gonna play the hot hand. And Gabe's going to go with Seabez. I know I talked about Seabez quite a bit with him a little bit this week, and he's heard others talk about Seabez, so that's his fear of missing out. And our wild card category for the week, former champion, or our favorite former Valspar champion. To me, this was a two-person thing because you have Adam Hadwin, who has not been very good. Taylor Moore is kind of interesting, but he's been really bad in 2025. So for me, it was between Spieth and Burns, and I'm completely out on Burns. So no thanks. So I'll take Spieth kind of by default. Spieth's at least shown some signs of life. Burns has just been awful with the irons, so no thanks. And then Gabe clearly going to take the other half of that, and we'll take Sam Burns. Again, I apologize for the rushed nature of the show, but the storm is here. You might have seen some flashes of light during the show. I want to thank everybody for tuning in, watching, listening, supporting the channel. Thanks to P, Derek, Phil, and Rose for jumping into chat. Very much appreciated. Thanks to everyone else out there who tunes in. Really appreciate the support. Try to do my best with giving you a statistician's view of what he sees, trying to help us all win a little bit of money in the process. So for all the wagers you've made this week for the Valspar, for all the DFS contests you played this week for the Valspar, for all of your brackets that you enter in all of your bracket challenges this week For this week and weekend and every weekend, may all your bets be profitable.